She wakes up, she walks into her bedroom and notices that her young 31-year-old husband is laying in bed with a gunshot wound to his head with pink foam coming out of his mouth. She walks around the home and notices that the back door is wide open and that all her husband's guns are missing from the gun cabinet. Could someone have broken into the home, stole all of her husband's guns, and then shoot the homeowner? Who could have committed this crime? And get this case has so many twists and turns, and the murderer gets caught red-handed. But who could have committed this crime? Let's find out right now. Wednesday, my Cajun cuties. Yes, it's me, Anne-Marie, aka the Cajun Crime Queen from Carriacou, Louisiana. Cajun born, Cajun bred, and when I die, I'll be Cajun dead. I hope after this video that you like, subscribe, and comment, and don't forget to press notification bell so you never miss a video from me, Anne-Marie. And as always, thank you all for joining me on this Wicked Wednesday evening as we discuss another true crime case. Today, I'm going to be taking you back to Robinson, Texas in November of 2005, 20 years ago, when a young 31-year-old husband and father was shot while he slept in his bed. And let me tell y'all, when I saw this case, when I read the articles, when I watched Snapped on the Oxygen channel, I'm sure y'all all heard of the show Snapped. It's all about women who have committed crimes. I thought to myself, there is no way that this person actually thought they were going to get away with this murder. But oh no, this person actually thought they were going to get away with this murder and they were going to have a clean slate and move on with their life. Oh no. Darlene Doscasile was born in 1974 in Cameron, Texas, which lies between Austin and Waco. Darlene was a beautiful child. She had long, blonde, thick hair, piercing blue eyes, full lips. Her personality was huge. She was a people person. Everyone was drawn to Darlene because of her personality as well as her beauty. She was a fly girl in high school. She loved everyone around her. Her senior year, she was named homecoming queen. She was just a wonderful person. After graduating high school, Darlene knew she wanted a career, but she didn't know what path to take. She knew she hated her teeth, so she thought to herself, maybe I should go into something dental because I don't like the way my teeth look. So Darlene enrolled in Texas State Technical College, which is located in Waco, Texas. While Darlene was at Texas State Technical College studying to be a dental assistant, she met a very handsome man named Keith Gentry. Keith was at college studying welding and drafting. Keith was a happy, sweet, loving, charming man who loved hanging out with his friends, and he especially loved hunting and fishing. Both Darlene and Keith were people. They loved to be around people. They loved hanging out with their friends. They loved spending time with friends and family. They were just good, happy people. By the time 1997 rolls around, Darlene graduates from school. Darlene was smitten with Keith Gentry. Even Keith's own father said Darlene acted like Keith hung the moon. Anything Keith wanted, Keith got. Darlene did everything under the sun to please Keith. She was so infatuated with Keith. She says that what drew her to Keith the most was his huge, beautiful, big brown eyes. She was just in love with Keith. And we all know how that is. When you meet the right person, it's just like, oh, hallelujah. You are totally head over heels in love and you would do anything for that person. And that's how Darlene felt. However, by the time she graduated, she wanted to settle down. Darlene wanted to get married, of course. She was around 23 years old. She thought Keith was the love of her life. She wanted to be with him, and there was no one else that Darlene could see herself marrying. However, she says that Keith was being a typical guy. He wanted to run and do. He wanted to do his own thing. He wasn't ready to settle down. He wasn't ready to get married, have a family. He still wanted to do his own thing, and she wasn't having that. So Keith and Darlene break up. Darlene says that it was so painful to be around Keith, to be around his family, to be around his friends because she still loved him. Darlene picked up and moved to Dallas, Texas to work for a dentist. However, Darlene says she only stayed there for about a year because her car got stolen and she decided to move back home. And when she moved back home, that is when she ran into Keith Gentry at a dance. She said they ran into each other, and that's when they both knew that they never wanted to be without each other again. In 1999, Keith Gentry proposes to Darlene, and later that year, they get married. Everyone was so excited that Keith and Darlene were finally back together, and they were now a happily married couple. Darlene said it was a beautiful wedding. They had the typical Texas wedding. They had the barbecue, they had the dance, and everyone was so happy and excited that the couple was married and living their best life. After they were married, Keith Gentry takes a job as a traveling electrician. Darlene decides to go back to school where she received her RN degree. And quickly after they were married, they built a house near Keith's parents in Robinson, Texas. And they quickly filled the home with 3 beautiful little boys, having them back to back to back, like 3 boys in 4 years. And my hat goes down to Darlene, because that sounds like a lot of work, but they had 3 beautiful baby boys together. All of a sudden, Keith realizes that he wants to spend more time with the boys because his job was keeping him away from the home 4 days a week. And the only time that Keith and Darlene would see each other would be on the weekends. However, they did make time for each other. Keith's parents lived next door, so they would constantly watch the 3 boys while Keith and Darlene would go hang out, spend time with their friends, go to dinner, go to a movie, sometimes go out of town. But Keith was said to himself, you know what, I have these 3 little boys, and they are boys. I need to spend time with them. I need to teach them things like hunting, fishing. I need to discipline them the way I want to discipline them. So he took a job, more of a desk job, making less money, which meant less money for Darlene. Now, let me tell y'all something about Darlene. Like most women, Darlene loved to shop. She loved the finer things in life. And Keith told a lot of people, if I'm not with Darlene, she will spend all of our money. All of a sudden, creditors started calling Keith at his work. All these credit card bills were past due. They were behind on their bills. And Keith was a fanatic about his credit. He hated the fact that he had all of this debt racking up. And after 6 years of marriage, people started saying to themselves, this is not the happy couple that we once saw. This is not right. Keith and Darlene were constantly arguing. And the main thing they were arguing about, like most married couples, was they had limited amounts of money. Darlene and Keith Gentry started spending less and less and less time with each other. They were spending more time apart than they were spending it together. And people say that Darlene was going out more. She was partying more, often leaving the 3 boys with Keith's parents, who lived right next door. However, Keith and Darlene were determined to stick it out. They loved each other very much, and they loved being parents to their 3 beautiful little boys. There was no way the couple was going to get divorced. Keith's parents started getting phone calls from creditors at their home and their jobs. So Keith's father tells Keith, hey, your mom has been getting phone calls from creditors. Keith was crazy upset. He hated the fact that Darlene was racking up all these high credit card bills. And one night, they got into an argument. They were going back and forth with each other. Darlene left. She lets Keith calm down. And they have a real nice conversation when they get back to talking that night. They talk about what they're going to do. They start talking about how they're going to consolidate all of these loans. They're going to figure things out. The next day was Wednesday, November 9th, 2005, when Darlene wakes up. She had slept in her son's room as they were all not feeling well. So she says that she wakes up around 6 a.m. She starts her morning routine with the boys. She realizes that she's late. She also notices that the house is very cold. She looks around and says, why is the house so cold? That is when she notices that the back door is wide open. And at first, she thought it was her because she remembers waking up in the middle of the night to throw away a dirty diaper. She just says, oh, I must not close the door all the way. Then she looks around and sees that all of Keith's guns are missing from the gun cabinet. She calls to Keith. She yells at him and says, hey, Keith, all your guns are missing and you need to wake up. She says that he wasn't waking up. She walks into the bedroom and notices that Keith's laying on the bed with pink foam coming out of his mouth. She says it looks like he was laying down, breathing with all his muscles, just taking these deep breaths. She looks at him. She taps him. She tries to wake him up. He's not waking up. She looks for her phone and she calls 911. She cannot wake up her husband, Keith. Darlene also notices that there is blood on the sheets. She's on the phone with 911, And while she's on the phone with 911, it is a very disturbing phone call. That is the first clue that I noticed that something didn't seem right. When she calls 911, she is telling them a story. They answer the phone and she's like, I was in my son's room last night because they weren't sleeping and this and that. And then she's like, and then I walk into my bedroom. I see my husband gurgling. He's making these noises. The back door's open. It takes her about 25 seconds to finally say something is wrong with my husband. It's like she's creating this alibi. It was weird. Now, I know nurses are trained in these type of situations to remain calm, but Darlene seemed extremely calm. She wasn't yelling, screaming. She didn't seem worried at all. Some people react different in situations. Not all people are going to react the same. Me, Anne-Marie, oh Lord have mercy. I would have been a nervous wreck. I would have been screaming, yelling, hollering, doing whatever I could to save my husband. I know the kind of person I am, and I would have been in a frantic panic at this point. When police arrive at the home, they find a very weird discovery. They discover all of Keith's missing guns are laid out nicely stacked in the front yard. Yeah, they're just hanging out in the front yard. Why would a robber break into the home, steal all the guns, shoot the homeowner, and then take the guns and lay them out in the front yard like they were scared, like they were caught? However, no one caught them break into the home. Darlene says that she saw nothing and she heard nothing. Keith looked like he was shot in his sleep in bed. So whoever broke into the house wasn't confronted by anyone. The cops keep questioning Darlene, and she keeps saying, I know nothing. I saw nothing. I don't know what happened. The police the ambulance get Keith stable enough to transfer him to the hospital, and the police just keep questioning Darlene. They want to know exactly what happened, but she can't give them any answers. She is very worried about what's going on. The cops are trying to keep her and her 3 kids in a secluded area. They don't want anybody walking around the house. They don't want anybody to see anything. So they have Darlene and the 3 boys secluded in one of the rooms in the home. And get this, the gun cabinet was locked. The key was on top of the gun cabinet. Someone took the key off the gun cabinet and opened the gun cabinet door. It was the glass in front of the gun cabinet wasn't broken. Nobody hit it. Nobody broke it. Nothing was done. So whoever wanted those guns just calmly opened up the gun cabinet and took the guns out. While the police were at Keith and Darlene's home, they said to themselves, something doesn't look right. And on the body camera, you hear one of the police officers say, something's not right here. I think she did it. I think she has something to do with this. Because nothing made sense. Nothing at all made sense. And while the police were interviewing Darlene, not once did she ask about her husband. Not once did she ask how he was doing, what was going on at the hospital. And they also found out that Darlene, even though she was a registered nurse, she did not help her husband at all. She didn't give him any kind of CPR. She says she did not touch him. All she did was call 911. She says that her primary goal was to keep the boys off of Keith. She was trying to keep them out of the room. She was trying to talk to 911, but she did not help her husband in any type of way. And the police wanted to know what was going on. About an hour into the interview, the hospital calls the police station and says that Darlene needs to get to the hospital. That her husband, Keith Gentry, is brain dead. And not long after this, he is taken off of the machine and he is pronounced deceased. At only 31 years old, Keith Gentry has passed away. Now, at this point, they want Darlene back at the police station. She agrees to go back to the police station. And that is when the police look at her and tell her, I don't know what kind of game you're trying to play. And she looks at them and says, excuse me? And she says, I think I need an attorney. And that is when everything started spiraling out of control. The police knew Darlene had something to do with the murder of her husband, Keith Gentry. Everything was weird. The way the guns were placed, how Darlene said she didn't hear anything. And get this, one of Keith's guns was missing from the gun collection. Yes, a gun his father had given him, a .22. And get this, when the autopsy came back, Keith Gentry was shot with a 22. And the cops believe that is the gun that is missing. The more and more police looked into Darlene and Keith Gentry, they realized that there are no skeletons in their closet. Keith is a hardworking, loving husband and father. He loves his kids, he loves his wife, he loves his family. He has no girlfriend. Darlene has no boyfriend. However, there are a lot of negative things about Darlene, that she racked up all these high credit card bills. However, that does not make her a murderer. They also discovered that Keith has several life insurance policies totaling up to around $750,000. They believe that Darlene knew about the life insurance policies. They also found a latex glove on top of the trash can containing Darlene's DNA, which I didn't find that big of a deal. Of course, Darlene's DNA is going to be all over the house. She lives in the home. She wears latex gloves. But they did find a pair of latex gloves the morning of the murders in the trash can. The police believe that the main thing about this situation that went wrong was the 911 call. And I totally believe that. That is the main thing I've always believed. When I heard the 911 call, which I will link for y'all, I found that very suspicious. She's telling this whole story about why she slept in the kids' room and her back door was open. And about 25 seconds later, that is when she finally says, oh wait, send an ambulance, something's wrong with my husband, he's making funny noises or whatever. It just didn't seem right. It's like she was forming an alibi. On November 28, 2005, police informed Keith Gentry's parents that they are in fact arresting Darlene on suspicion of murder. The cops arrest Darlene and she makes bail later on that evening. Darlene, as well as the three boys, move into Keith's parents' home. Keith's parents believe Darlene had nothing to do with the murder of their son. They loved Darlene and they didn't think Darlene would ever take their child away from them. While Darlene is out on bond, she decides that she wants to move out of the house, which I totally understand. Her husband was shot and killed in that home. She doesn't want to be there. She wants to have a new life and a fresh start with her three beautiful little boys. She decides to call this man Robert. She asks him, she says, hey, do you have any houses for sale? He says, no, but I have some property for sale. She goes and looks at these properties, and that is when she finds a beautiful piece of property. It has this huge pond on it, these beautiful oak trees. She said Keith would have loved this place. He always wanted to teach the kids how to go fishing. So this place is perfect. I want the pond. I want it all. Then all of a sudden, Darlene calls and says, you know what? Never mind. I'm not interested in the pond. You could go ahead and fill it in. But why? So Robert, the property owner, is shocked because he was like, Darlene called me. She told me she wanted the pond, how Keith would love this place, how Keith always wanted to take his kids fishing. Then all of a sudden, she's telling me, no, go ahead and fill in the pond. So he started thinking to himself, he knew who she was. He knew what she was accused of. He calls the police station. He's like, look, this may be nothing, but I find this very odd. So the police say to themselves, we should go look in that pond. What if something's in that pond that Darlene doesn't want anyone to ever know about? So divers are called to the pond. And on January 4th, 2006, the divers find a .22 gun. And guess what? This is Keith Gentry's missing gun. So the police are just shocked. They say to themselves, Darlene put this gun in there. On January 11th, 2006, Darlene is indicted for first-degree murder. However, how do they know that Darlene threw this gun in the pond? They don't know that for a fact. They can't prove it, or could they? Yes, they could. Guess what happened? When Robert told Darlene they were going to be draining the pond, Darlene was very nervous, he said. Her voice was very shaky. She probably thought to herself, oh my gosh, I threw that gun in that pond. The police set up surveillance cameras so they can see people coming in and out of that pond. All of a sudden, while they're filming, they see Darlene's SUV drive up. They see Darlene. You obviously know it's her with her long blonde hair. She's carrying a stick and she is digging. She is digging. She is pushing the mud. She is pushing the water. She's looking for something. It's very obvious she's looking for something. She's just moving her hands all around. The police know she is looking for the gun. And how they know that is because they put a stick in the water to where the gun was found. And she's looking where that stick is. What she doesn't realize is the cops already had the gun. So she's sitting there looking for this gun, and it's not even there. The police know that Darlene threw that gun in the pond. On February 6, 2007, Darlene Gentry's trial starts. She did not take the stand. She looked and remained very calm. The jury saw the video of Darlene looking for the gun. They saw her digging, they saw her carrying the stick, they saw her looking, and they knew it was Darlene. Now, Darlene says there is a good reason why she was there looking for the gun. She says that she had heard a rumor that someone had thrown the gun into this pond and she was looking for this gun. However, she said after a couple of minutes, she realized this is stupid, this is crazy, I shouldn't be doing this. Now, let me tell y'all something. I'm going to tell y'all something right now. If I heard that rumor, my husband had just been shot, and I heard a rumor that that gun was in the pond, I'm not going to look for that gun. I'm not going to be the one to searching the pond for the gun. I'm going to go to the police, and I'm going to tell the police, hey, there's a rumor that the gun is in that pond. Y'all need to go find that gun. I'm not going to go look for it themselves. How do I know that that person that supposedly killed my husband is not looking for me and they waiting for me at the pond? And then I'll go lose my life trying to find a firearm. It just wouldn't happen. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. The jury didn't believe Darlene either. It took them only 5 hours to have a verdict. And they found Darlene Gentry guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Keith's parents have full custody of the 3 boys. They are now all over the age of 20. I think around the time the murder happened, the oldest was around 4 or 5 years old, which is very sad. These 3 little boys were innocent in this situation. And in a matter of months, both parents were taken away from them. And that breaks my heart every single day to know that these 3 little boys, so young, so innocent, had no parents at such a young age. They lost their father, and now their mother is sitting in jail, just waiting to hope, waiting. Maybe she'll get out one day. She's up for parole in the year 2037. But in my personal opinion, I do not believe that Darlene Gentry will ever get out of jail. I do not believe that she should ever get out of jail. I think that she should stay in there and realize what she took away from not only Keith's parents, but those 3 beautiful little boys. She took away a good husband and a good father. And my thoughts and my prayers are with the family of Keith Gentry, especially those 3 little boys. My final thought, I always give y'all my final thought. And my final thought is, I do believe that Darlene Gentry actually thought she was going to get away with murder. And in my personal opinion, I do believe Darlene Gentry shot and murdered her husband, Keith Gentry, because she wanted to get out of debt and she wanted to keep spending money. She wanted this $750,000 life insurance policy. She wanted to move on with her life. I do believe that. Some people think she did not commit this murder. In my personal opinion, I do believe Darlene Gentry shot and killed her husband, Keith Gentry. Now, let me tell y'all another thing. How in the heck did Darlene think she was going to get away with this murder? She didn't think this out. This was all over the place. And then when the police didn't believe her, she kind of crawfishes back like, oh, wait. Y'all was supposed to believe me. Y'all asking me all these questions. Y'all was supposed to believe these guns were in the yard. And y'all was supposed to believe I didn't hear anything. The police always work from the inside out. I've told y'all that in several videos because they want to make sure the people closest to the victim is not involved in the murder of the victim. So they work with the spouse, the parents, the children, friends and family. And then once they realize they had nothing to do with it, then they work from the outside. They start looking in other directions. So I think the cops believe right away this scene was very fishy, especially with the gun just being laid out in the front yard. It's not like Keith Gentry was found deceased in front of the gun case, in front of the gun cabinet. He was found sleeping in the bed. So if a robber came in to steal the guns, why would they just go up to Keith and shoot him while he's sleeping? Nothing made sense. And then Darlene placing the guns in the front yard, she didn't think anything out. She just thought she was going to get away with murder, but she didn't. Especially when there was a video of her looking for that gun. That was in. That was close. That sealed the deal. That was it for her. I hope all of y'all enjoyed today's video. I hope that y'all like, subscribe, and comment. And don't forget to press the notification bell so you never miss a video from me, Anne-Marie. And as always, stay safe. Always be aware of your surroundings and always know that I'm here for each and every one of y'all. I will see y'all next week on Wicked Wednesday for more Cajun Crime Queen videos. And as always, I love y'all all very much. Thank y'all again for joining me. And for you, I am truly grateful. I will see y'all next week. I love all of you. Bye.